I just wanna be okay, be okay, be okay. I just wanna be okay today. I just wanna be okay, be okay, be okay. I just wanna be okay today.
You invited them to get naked and sacrifice a small goat.
I just wanna feel something today.
Naked!
I just wanna feel today, feel today, feel today. I just wanna feel.
Welcome back. You're live and on the air here on The Naked Truth with Alicia New. Glad to be back with you guys after 2 weeks off. It seems like a little weird, but everything is as it was when I left, except I'm back in my place again. Hope you guys are doing well. It has been a very exciting couple of weeks for me. I went and auditioned for The Voice, which is always a riot, watching all the characters there. And sadly, I had to take the walk of shame, so I didn't make it. But it was always fun going after those kind of things. If you're interested in seeing what kind of music I do, you guys can always go check out my webpage. It's alicianew.com. And just like you spell Alicia Keys' name, A-L-I-C-I-A, last name New, N-E-W, alicianew.com. And all my music and stuff is on there, as well as the books that I've written and the radio show and all the different media outlets that I enjoy playing on, because this is sort of my hobby that I have going here. Well, let's listen to what happened a couple of weeks ago right here on The Naked Truth with Alicia New. Children get into the teen years, especially we were just talking about this the other day, that most 13-year-old girls seem to hate their lives for some reason, but they do grow out of that. But you do want your children to ultimately come to a place where they're satisfied with their life and where they have solid friendships in their lives. Middle school is one of my least favorite phases that I have to guide my children through. I hated it when I was there. I don't know if you did or not, but I hated it when I was there. I hate watching my kids go through it, but I think overall they're finishing strong. Last year, my son finished strong in 6th grade. I told him it was a rough year. He got into his first fist fight, which by the end of the year, I finally just told him he's a smart kid, so he gets picked on. And I just told him by the end of the year, I said, man, don't bring it. But, if they bring it to you, you're not going to get in trouble with me if you step up. So he ended up stepping up in the middle of the year, and actually things got a little better after that, I think. But it's just a tough time. I think high school has been a lot more fun for my daughter. She's really enjoying high school and is really excited to start 10th grade. But I think it's very important that we instill this capacity to cope in our children and for them to feel competent. I think we can maybe define resilience as the capacity to cope and feel competent about being able to handle life. Although the word resilience has typically been applied to youngsters who have overcome stress and hardships, I think that it should probably be understood more as this vital set of qualities that every child needs to go on into adulthood and continue that resilience. There's a study that I looked up by Dr. Robert Brooks and Sam Goldstein on the mindset of a resilient child. And I'm going to share with you some of what they say about resilient children. Resilient children, they say, are hopeful and possess high self-worth. They feel special and appreciated. They've learned to set realistic goals and expectations in their lives. And I think that's an important thing that we as parents can help our children do. I think that we have to be careful not to shoot too low for those expectations for our children too. I think sometimes if our children have learning disabilities or they have different impediments, then we tend to set sort of lower goals for them than we might in other situations. But you have to remember, Einstein and many other people had certain impediments that made it seem like their goals may not be achievable, when in fact there was no limit to their goals. So you have to keep that in mind. Another definition from this study of the resilient child says they have developed the ability to solve problems and make decisions and are more likely to view mistakes, hardships, and obstacles as challenges to confront rather than as stressors to avoid. I think one of the important things in our lives with our children is to demonstrate this in front of them. We all make mistakes. It is okay to make mistakes in front of your children. I think it is actually beneficial to them to learn that, yeah, mom screws up sometimes. My kids know that full well. But when they see me making my mistakes and they see the hardships in my life and they see me overcoming those things, I think that's a great example for them of what they can do in their life. life. And that will help them get to that point where they have the ability to solve problems and make decisions, and then are more likely to view their own mistakes and hardships and obstacles as challenges to confront rather than stressors to avoid. Resilient children also have developed effective interpersonal skills with peers and adults, according to this study. They're able to seek out assistance and nurturance in appropriate ways when they need it. They focus on the aspects of their lives which they have control over rather than over those things that they have little or no influence on. And I remember having this exact conversation with my son not too long ago. There was something going on in his life that he really had nothing, there was nothing he could do about it. And I said, well, this is just the way it is. My kids hate it when I say that. Life just is what it is sometimes. This is what it is. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. But let's think of the things that you can do to overcome this in your life. I want to remind you guys that you can tune in to The Naked Truth with Alicia New on 5 different stations in and around the area. So if you're down in the Jasper, Florida area, you can tune in to Talk 107.5 down there. And in Quitman in Brooks County, we're on 97.7 The Wave, as well as here on Talk 92.1 Radio. On Saturday mornings at 9 a.m., we're over in the Bainbridge area on Live 101.9, and we're also on Rockin' 106.3 over in the Dothan, Alabama area. So we have a good little swath of South Georgia and North Florida now that are being exposed to the naked truth every week, and I'm very excited about the growing audience that we have. You can also check me out on AliciaNew.com. You spell my name just like Alicia Keys, AliciaNew.com, and I'm also on Facebook if you want to look me up there. All right, so last week we started talking about children and what we were looking at, specifically the resilience of children. As you may remember, the theme of the show, even though I've only been gone 2 weeks, so hopefully you haven't forgotten, that the theme of our show is survival strategies when the world changes around you. But not only just surviving life, but getting to the point where you are emotionally, spiritually, and physically healthy enough to not just survive life, but to actually thrive in whatever stage in life you may find yourself. And I had a lot of theories about how to do that. And I actually just walked through a time where that was very difficult, and I've taken you along the ride with me of like 4 months of unemployment. And my recovery now, I'm happily employed and gainfully employed again. So very happy about that. I started working for A&D Environmental Services on Thursday of last week, and so I am making great money now. I am in the best job I've ever had. I'm really enjoying all the new technology and all the new education that I'm getting with this new position. So if you want to know more about A&D Environmental, hit me up. Find me on Facebook or somewhere like that, and I'll tell you all about the services I can provide for your industry. But we've been talking about getting to the place of thriving in life, and we spent probably the first 6 months of the show talking about ourselves, which we like talking about ourselves, so it was a pretty easy sell to you guys. But we talked about the different parts of self that I believe you have to work on and pay attention to get to the point where you thrive in life, and there were 9 of those. We talked about laughter and grieving, learning to regroup, learning to build a support system for yourself, knowing when to ask for help, accepting who you are, forgiving yourself, respecting yourself, and then embracing those things that are in your life instead of always looking at the things that aren't in your life. We're going on now to talk about our children, and over the next few months, however long it takes, we're going to talk about several different topics. I have several different guests that I want to bring in to talk about the resiliency of children, the ability of children to adapt to new situations. But we have about 5 different areas that I want to talk about specifically when it comes to raising our children. The first one is remembering that our children are very resilient. So last show that we had was on that topic. It was about the resiliency of children. I wasn't finished after that show. I've got another show to do on the resiliency of children that will be coming up, at least one more, and I have one guest that will be coming in about that as well. We're going to have in Corinne Sims, who is from the Methodist Children's Home in Valdosta, and it's a girls' home, and we're going to talk about the resiliency of those girls and what that means in those type situations. But so one is remembering that children are resilient. 2 is making a conscious effort to be present when your children are at home with you. Number 3 is making their friends love you. Being respected by them and your friends is very important. Asking questions that lead to a conversation with your children. And then to not be afraid to give guidance to your children. Always be the parent first, friend second, but you need to be both. You need to be a friend and a parent, just a parent first, I believe, to raise awesome kids like mine. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that some, but I want to take you on the journey that I've been on over the last 2 weeks. Done lots of fun stuff, went and, auditioned for The Voice, like I told you. Also have started my job. So I wasn't here last week because I was actually training for my new position, which I'm really enjoying. I was very overwhelmed at first, a lot of technical information that I have to learn to go into this new area of environmental management, but I'm loving every minute of it. So I'm going to take you through some of my thoughts. As you know, I blog. Most of you know if you're on Facebook, you can go to Facebook and just look up Alicia New and friend me there, or look up The Naked Truth with Alicia New and like the page there and get most of my blogs. But I'm going to walk you through some of my thoughts over the last few weeks as I've been going through this journey. I was going through a time in my life where it seemed like things had the appearance of really coming together while the hard evidence around me was still difficult to find. It was a frustrating time. It was sort of frustratedly encouraged, if that makes any sense. And it was a confusing place to be, to say the least. Everything in my life seemed to be touch and go. It would start and then stop. It'd be yes, but wait a minute, maybe. Almost, but not quite. Not yet, anyway. But soon. Seemed like it was coming soon. And now I've finally started walking into it. But all this encouragement in my life was kind of making me confused because it didn't match what was actually going on in my life. Now, being the affirmation whore that I am, I love being told I'm fabulous, don't we all? But I was asking myself, where is the fabulosity in my life to match what I'm being told? I thought it was coming. I felt pretty confident that it was, but I was wishing really hard that it would hurry up. I know we've all been in places like that before. But things were getting down to the wire, and they always stay so close to the edge, and we all know how that is. When you're living on the edge all the time, it gets exhausting sometimes. And when I walked into church one week during this time, I had a deacon pull me aside. He had read one of my blogs from several months ago about my frustrations with church in general. I really struggle to stay a part of the institution of church, even though I have deep faith. And I had decided in my heart that my faith is not something I'm going to struggle with over anymore. Either it's just going to flow naturally and organically out of the life that I lead, or it's not genuine. I can't manufacture or force the thing. Well, church seems to have little or nothing to do with that spirituality. And if a thing hinders my spirituality instead of encouraging it, which church, as the institution, often does, then I may tolerate the thing, but I don't feel inclined to invest in it. Well, when he pulled me aside, he said he felt like he was supposed to tell me that church at this stage in my life may be more about what I have to give than what I need to receive, and that's where my frustration was coming from. What a concept. I'm still marinating on that one, but it's an interesting line of thought, I guess, for someone who's as frustrated as I am with the institution we call church. But when I feel so bankrupt sometimes, and I actually was at that time teetering on, very literally, the verge of bankruptcy after 4 months of being unemployed, I began to question what I actually had to give. I mean, sure, I can sing, I take a pretty picture, I can write little notes and ditties to make you laugh and cry. I can run my mouth on the radio. But I felt like at that point so far, what does it come to? Of what use is all this stuff? And then a voice from my past came piercing through my questions. Having been married to a minister for 14 years, we worked with a lot of youth during that time, and many of them are still in my life today. I call them all my starter children. I practiced being a parent on them before I could ruin my own, so hopefully I just ruined other people's children, and now I have all the necessary information to make mine awesome, so you're welcome, guys. But many of those kids are in my life today as grown-ups, which is a very cool thing, and I'm not sure there's anything that touches me more deeply than when one of those kids comes back as an adult and tells me what effect I had on them, especially if my effect didn't lead to them serving time in a penitentiary or something, in jail somehow. But now that I have divorced said minister and live completely different lifestyle, as a somewhat progressive, pithy, I would say modern single mother, there are many people who could judge me and who have judged me. And I'm often misunderstood by people on all sides of the religious coin. There are people who have written me off and others who pray for me to come back into the proverbial fold on a daily basis. But to this particular day, a beautiful young woman's words cut straight to that place within my heart that needed a touch of encouragement. And what she wrote to me was, Alicia, you really have a cool heart, a warmness of really seeing others. I always look up to you I always looked up to you for that when I was in the youth group, and pure hearts never change. No matter what they go through and what they get wrong or right, they always return to truth because it's home to them. From one misunderstood pure heart to another. It's the ones who knew you as they were growing up, watching you, that can really tell you the truth about yourself sometimes. And you were stellar. You are stellar. Well, as you can imagine, that little note struck right to my heart. And I was stone cold tired and fallen asleep when she wrote this little note to me. And afterwards, all I could do was lay there in bed thinking, how can you not write about this moment? You need to tell this story to somebody. So I got up and did just that. I think I realized at that moment that being stellar has nothing to do with your circumstances. You can have horrendous circumstances and be stellar right there in the middle of it. A pure heart, I agree, is a rare thing and a valuable thing. Now, I wouldn't call my life, my thoughts, my words, my humor, nor many of my actions pure by any stretch of the imagination. But somehow, as she wrote those words of encouragement to me, I just knew somehow that she was speaking the truth, at least as she saw it, which was precious. And from one pure heart to another, she believed those very words. Well, her words were profound to me. A spiritual moment occurred right there that I very rarely feel in what we call church. Maybe it was the carb detox kicking in that I was trying to go through, or maybe it was genuinely that I was encouraged from a place that's deeper than just my psyche, because that's how it felt. If you haven't experienced it before, I may not be able to describe it accurately to you, but it was an existential moment, I would say. I had to stop and grasp the significance of that moment. I recognized myself in this fact. What my heart longs for is a pure truth, a clear understanding, to see things as they genuinely are, and to see people as they authentically are, to know and to do what is right, and to love people within that context. Well, I was almost 41 years of age at that time when I had this whole experience. I am now 41, and I finally know who I am and what I want. Not in material things, but in this personal place within where many people get lost. It's this inner life that can be so rich or so very impoverished depending on what we develop within ourselves. Now, I have no idea how to get there exactly, but for the first time in my life that night, I just knew inside my knower that I'm on my way. My spirituality is a natural part of my life, and I just have to embrace that. I don't have to justify anything about my life to anyone. I just have to live it and trust this heart that I've been given to guide me in the right direction, because I know what it wants, and I know what I want is good. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Keep it locked in right here. You're on The Naked Truth with Alicia New.